Alexander stood upon a rocky ridge as the first light of dawn spread across the eastern sky. Below him stretched the endless plains where countless battles had already shaped the destiny of kingdoms. His soldiers waited in disciplined silence, their bronze armor glowing beneath the rising sun. Veteran companions tightened their shields, while cavalry horses stamped impatiently against the earth. The air carried no birdsong that morning. Instead, an unnatural silence settled over the land, as though nature itself held its breath. Scouts had returned during the night with impossible stories. Entire villages had vanished without fire or siege. Watchtowers stood abandoned with gates still open. The only signs of struggle were enormous footprints pressed deep into the soil. Alexander had conquered mighty empires and crossed deserts that few dared enter. He had faced armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Yet even he could not dismiss the fear hidden inside the eyes of his most trusted officers. They spoke of creatures taller than elephants. They described beasts with horns of black stone and mouths filled with jagged fangs. Others claimed to have seen winged shadows, gliding silently above the forests after sunset. Many believed angry gods had unleashed ancient horrors upon the earth. Alexander refused to surrender to superstition. He believed every enemy could be defeated through courage, discipline, and strategy. As the sun climbed higher, a low rumble echoed across the plain. The ground trembled beneath thousands of synchronized footsteps. At first, only dust appeared beyond the distant hills. Then enormous shapes slowly emerged from the haze. The soldiers watched in frozen disbelief. Towering giants covered in rough scales marched beside monstrous wolves larger than horses. Behind them crawled enormous spider-like creatures with gleaming black eyes. High above the battlefield, leathery-winged monsters circled through the clouds. The Legion of Nightmares advanced without banners or drums. Only their growls and thunderous footsteps broke the silence. Alexander raised his spear toward the approaching darkness. His voice carried across the ranks with calm confidence. He reminded every soldier that fear was the first battle and courage was the first victory. The phalanx lowered thousands of long spears until they formed an unbroken forest of sharpened points. Shield locked against shield. Every warrior trusted the man standing beside him. The monsters charged. The earth shook with overwhelming force. The first wave struck the Macedonian line like a crashing sea. Massive wolves hurled themselves onto the spear wall. Many were impaled before reaching the shields. Others crashed into the formation, with enough strength to throw soldiers backward. The line bent but did not break. Behind the wolves came towering, giants swinging clubs carved from entire tree trunks. Each impact shattered shields and sent bronze helmets flying through the air. Alexander rode directly toward the fiercest fighting. His famous horse carried him fearlessly between collapsing ranks. Wherever panic threatened to spread, Alexander appeared with sword raised high. His presence steadied exhausted warriors. The battle became a storm of steel and monsters. The air filled with the clash of bronze against bone. Arrows darkened the sky. Some found the narrow gaps beneath monstrous scales. Others bounced harmlessly away. The giant spiders reached the battlefield next. They climbed over fallen bodies with terrifying speed. Their long legs ignored the shield wall entirely. They struck from above, dragging soldiers screaming into their massive jaws. Alexander ordered the reserve infantry to surround the creatures. Dozens of warriors attacked each spider from every direction. Many fell beneath venomous bites. Eventually, even the largest monsters collapsed beneath relentless spear thrusts. Then darkness spread across the battlefield, although the sun still shone overhead. The winged creatures descended. Their enormous wings beat with hurricane force. They snatched men from horseback before dropping them onto broken rocks. Some breath streams of burning fire that turned shields into blazing embers. Alexander realized the battle would soon be lost if the flying monsters remained unchallenged. He gathered his finest archers upon a nearby hill. Rather than firing wildly, he waited patiently. The creatures circled again, confident in their superiority. Only when they swooped low toward the hill did Alexander give the signal. Hundreds of arrows launched together. The sky briefly disappeared beneath their flight. Several winged monsters crashed violently into the ground. Others retreated higher into the clouds, wounded and roaring with fury. Hope returned to the Macedonian ranks. The soldiers pressed forward once more. Every step cost blood. Every victory demanded sacrifice. Still they refused to yield. Hours passed beneath the relentless sun. The battlefield transformed into a landscape of shattered weapons and fallen heroes. Neither side surrendered. Neither side retreated. Then a deafening roar rolled across the mountains. Every monster suddenly stopped moving. Even the wounded froze where they stood. From beyond the hills came something far greater than the creatures already fighting. A colossal beast slowly emerged from the dust. Its body towered above every giant. Its skin resembled cracked volcanic stone, glowing faintly with red light beneath the surface. Two enormous horns curved backward above burning golden eyes. Each breath escaped like smoke from a forge. The smaller monsters bowed before their monstrous king. Even Alexander's bravest veterans struggled to remain steady. The giant beast stepped forward. Every footfall split the ground. Alexander understood that defeating the lesser monsters meant nothing while their leader remained alive. He called for his elite companions. Only a handful still remained after the terrible battle. Together they charged directly toward the colossal king. The beast swung one massive arm. Several horsemen vanished beneath the crushing blow. Alexander narrowly avoided the attack as his horse leaped across broken stones. He drove his spear into the creature's side. The bronze point shattered instantly against the stone-like hide. The beast roared with laughter. Alexander drew his sword without hesitation. He noticed deep cracks running across the monster's body whenever it roared. Beneath those cracks burned molten light. Those glowing fractures became his only chance. He ordered every remaining archer to concentrate on the creature's face. As arrows filled the air, the beast raised both arms to protect its eyes. For a single moment, its glowing chest remained exposed. Alexander urged his horse forward with every ounce of strength it possessed. At the final instant, he leaped from the saddle. Time seemed to slow. He landed against the giant's chest and drove his sword deep into the brightest glowing crack. A blinding light exploded across the battlefield. The colossal monster released a roar unlike anything heard before or since. The earth shook violently. The sky itself seemed to tremble. Then the creature began to collapse. Great fractures spread across its entire body. Its stone flesh crumbled into countless glowing fragments. As their king fell, Every remaining monster cried out in terror. Some dissolved into black dust. Others fled toward the distant mountains. Many simply vanished, as though they had never existed. Silence slowly returned to the battlefield. The wind carried away the last drifting ashes. Alexander stood alone beside the ruins of the fallen giant. His armor was scarred. His shield was broken. His sword had become little more than a cracked piece of bronze. Around him lay the brave companions who had followed him to the edge of legend. The surviving soldiers gathered in exhausted silence. No cheers echoed across the plain. They understood the price of victory. Alexander looked toward the horizon, where the first stars now appeared above the darkening world. He knew history would remember his conquests against kings and empires. Few would ever believe the battle fought on that forgotten plain. Perhaps the tale would become nothing more than a fireside legend whispered by old veterans. Perhaps future generations would dismiss it as impossible myth. Alexander welcomed their doubt. He needed no monument beyond the loyalty of the men who had stood beside him. As night covered the battlefield, the great conqueror led his surviving army toward the distant east once more. The world remained vast. New kingdoms still waited beyond the horizon. And somewhere beyond the reach of maps and memory, ancient shadows watched the march of history with silent patience.